I want to talk to you about the trade war. This week we saw Trump impose 25% taxes or tariffs on Mexican and Canadian imports, so he limited the levy to 10% on Canadian energy. And we heard from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He, of course, labelled the tariffs as dumb.
Donald, in the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage. Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see.
He went on to announce that Canada would slap on more than $100 billion of American goods over the course of 21 days. And Trump responded by trolling Canada's Prime Minister, saying, please explain to Governor Trudeau of Canada that when he puts on a retaliatory tariff on the US, our reciprocal tariff will immediately increase by a like amount. And this morning, Trump announced that he would temporarily spare car makers from the 25% import tax. So this trade war is making people around the world pretty nervous. We've seen the stock market react. What's your analysis of it?
Well, Gabriella, it needs to be fair. It is ridiculous, whoever made those trade deals over the years. I mean, Prime Minister Modi from India came to the capital, and in India, they have 150% tariffs on US goods. He, in all his magnanimous gesture, he lowered it to 100% tariffs. This is ridiculous. The EU has over 10% tariffs on anything that the US tries to import into the EU, whereas like cars, and we only have a 2.5%. It needs to be fair. It needs to be reciprocal. And when people want it lowered, we'll just do the same. It's going to be reciprocal. And I think that that's fair. And I don't understand why other people don't think that it's fair. And by the way, the US did help rebuild the entire world after the Second World War. Now, there was a time when the US did that, but I will say this. President McKinley, he was the one that had extensive tariffs. The US was so wealthy back in the 19th century. I believe it was 1870, they established a blue ribbon commission to try to determine how to spend all that money. We need to have the money levied by tariffs that are fair to other nations, and that's better and fairer for Americans.
And Donald Trump has also acknowledged that this trade war, it's also about stopping fentanyl coming into the United States from Canada.
You're absolutely right. That's actually the most important point. Sorry, I missed that, which is it's a drug war, not necessarily just also a tariff war. When you see the drugs, the fentanyl that is coming over from the US border, from the Canadian and Mexican border, 4.8 million Americans have died from fentanyl, and that needs to stop. And yes, they can stop it by helping to man their borders on both the northern Canadian border and the southern Mexican border. Absolutely, it's a drug war.
Now, finally, I want to speak to you about what is going on with Ukraine. We know that Volodymyr Zelensky says that this White House meeting with Donald Trump did not go the way it was supposed to. Well done for acknowledging that, and he says it was regrettable. Now, after causing all this drama, he says he's ready to sign this minerals deal, something he could have done at the White House, but as we know, he couldn't have handled it any worse, that meeting, if he tried. But just days after the Oval Office spat, he told media outlets that the end to the war was very, very far away. Now, after this, we saw Donald Trump pause US military aid to Ukraine. Here is just a bit more of what Zelensky has had to say.
What happened in the White House instead of our talks is regrettable. But we need to find the strength to move on, to respect each other, as we have always respected America, Europe, and all our partners, and to do everything together to bring peace closer.
It's a bit hard to listen to that after watching him instigate the fight with Trump and JD Vance. But this latest development, the United States has now paused intelligence sharing with Ukraine. So that's possibly including critical data for identifying Russian strike targets. That's likely to have pretty serious consequences. How significant is this and in terms of, I suppose, putting pressure on Ukraine to show more of a willingness to really engage in peace talks?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely correct about this. What I would say is better late than never, always. But just that display, and of course, it was very public in the White House. The only good thing I would say about it is, as the tax-paying public, it actually, in some ways, was wonderful to be able to see such transparency. Imagine if this had all happened behind doors. We saw it in real time. I don't know that that's actually really ever happened in the world before, really, when you think about it. So I thought that was, taking a positive away from it. However, now with regard to Zelensky, obviously, he flew directly to the UK. He met with Keir Starmer. He met with the King. So I'm not going to take any British credit there, but who knows who spoke to him? I think some European leaders. Definitely people must have got through with a sense to him. Now, with regard to the minerals deal, Gabriella, obviously having an American presence there, American companies, American staff and drilling, they will provide their own private security. I think that there is eventually a win-win for the Ukraine, for all of Europe, actually, and actually Russia, because of Russia, purportedly, they want peace too. I think it's a very complex issue, but I think that this is, overall, this seems to me to be a good step. He's waving the white flag. He's actually admitted as much as he can, I think, as him, but he's admitted an error, which I think it's manly to do. We're in a better place than we were a few days ago, definitely, towards peace.
And I just want to get your thoughts on what did you make of what Keir Starmer had to say after he met with Zelensky. He said he has, proposed his plan for peace, but that also includes potentially having boots on the ground. So obviously a different approach to what Donald Trump was suggesting. What did you make of Keir Starmer's actions?
Yes, actually, I would say two-tier Keir, or a slippery, slimy Keir, slippery, slimy Starmer, as he's also referred to. I'm not a major fan. What I would say is that I would look at polls, and polling that I've seen from GB News was only 52% of the UK approve. I've seen other UK polls that said around 50%. So, I mean, you've got at least half of the British public doesn't agree. I would look to that. I think that's very important. So his polling isn't good. His public support isn't good. So I don't think I'm the only one who says, UK boots on the ground. I don't think that that's what people want. And I think it was not good to contradict, basically, President Trump. However, somebody spoken to Zelensky, somebody somewhere, I don't know who, has, though, got Zelensky to capitulate, and that's good.
So good to speak with you, commentator and president and founder of Strelmark, Hilary Fordwich. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Pleasure. Absolutely, Gabriella. Thank you for having me.